Let's look at VHS-C or S-VHS-C. Just like in professional formats where you have a big and a small version of the same format tape, which take the small version out in field recorders, video cameras, and then use the big version in the studio, which lasts longer to do edits. Similar thing happened in the consumer area where there are full-size VHS tapes, and then there are these small compact VHS-C compact size tapes for putting in video cameras. They did a very cunning thing here, and you can get a cassette adapter that you put the VHS-C tape into, and it turns it into a regular size VHS shell. So you can now put that into your regular VCR. You see what happens there when it drives the tape out into the right position. It removes this block, so you can now push it into your machine. Quite cunning. Instead of a regular take-up reel, there's just a gear which advances the tape, and in the machines there is a corresponding little gear there that touches. Apart from the physical size of the tape housing, everything else about the VHS mechanism is the same in terms of the way it works to keep the recordings compatible between the big and the small tapes. Although they do use the smaller size head that we looked at in some previous full-size VHS machines. But equally, some VHS-C machines use regular size video heads. These are S-VHS-C tapes, and similar to these S-VHS, Super VHS, using a better quality tape formulation, they were able to increase the bandwidth of the luminance signal that's recorded on the tape, and that results in a better picture. The color part is the same pretty low bandwidth as regular VHS, so you don't get much performance increase in color, but having better luminance bandwidth creates a much clearer picture. These S-VHS tapes are detected by the machine by a hole with a little lever or switch pushes into. This here exists on the S-VHS tapes, does not exist on the regular VHS tapes, so there'll be a thing that pokes in there in the machine to detect that you've put an S-VHS tape into it. For the VHS-C, they don't have a hole. Instead they have that thing there. So that's the record prevention. That hole exists, and that gets detected by this carrier as well. There's a little lever there that sits in the hole, and you can see it moves that. So if you put a non-SVHS tape in, that will be closed. Like that. And if you put an SVHS one in, that will remain open. Similarly, there's a little thing for the record prevention, which goes on that there. Interesting, this VHS tape has got this different way of doing it. Instead of snapping out a tab like you would do on a regular tape, they put this, whatever that is, a little sliding thing, and it says there limited edition protect mechanism. So that's interesting. Seems to be a thing. This one's got that as well. BASF thing. And then that's similar on the SVHS tapes, where they either have a knockout, or this one, JVC brand, that uses the sliding mechanism. Anyway, let's get into the actual thing. What we've got here is a S-VHS-C Hitachi video camera, and we will take a look at it and take it apart. it's got a lot of buttons and controls on all over it, which is very interesting. The sliding cover here, controls, more controls. It's got a microphone on the back so that you can do a voiceover, I guess. This part moves. I think that's so you can pack it away more compact. And the battery is in the hand grip. It's a pretty annoying place to put it because you have to have a battery in there, otherwise it will be uncomfortable. There's a manual white balance. This other thing for mode, shutter priority or something, I don't know. And or auto. There's titling, which it looks like you set up by these controls. Time lapse. Because it's got a flying erase here, I guess you can do insert editing type stuff. So time lapse. First, I introduced this video camera near when I got it on a live stream previously. This tape was in it when it arrived, and I was able to power it up there and get it out. I'll insert that video if it's of any value. Again, it didn't come with any power supply, but it has got a normal DC input thing. I found a cord that's got the right plug on it, so we should be able to wire up to that. The center pin is positive, so we can strip these wires. To power it, you slide this flap up or down. Didn't do anything. Oh look, here we go. Oh, look at that. It is an S-VHS-C tape. That's nice. That's a very good score. Screen is very messed up looking. It's in VTR mode. We'll try play the tape. Yeah, I think it's unhappy about something. There's tracking on the bottom. There's a weird AV out thing. I don't have the plug for that. This didn't come with any stuff, but I have got this video cord here. So we can try that. Let's turn that on. See if anything interesting happens. It's kind of on. Or is a lens cap. It says no signal. Either there really is no video coming out of this S-video port. There is some activity on the Viewfinder that it's a bit wonky. For some reason this capture thing can't lock onto it, so we could try this, which has an S-video in and it turns it into HDMI. We'll see if that is willing to do anything for us. Claims to be receiving. Yeah, I think those bars are coming from the... they're not coming out of the camera. Anyway, let's put the tape in and see if that does anything. Although we probably want to put it on VTR mode. Oh yeah. Oh, is it complaining about the battery being flat? It's pretty angry about everything, isn't it? Nah, it's not gonna... it doesn't want to enter play mode. Yeah, it doesn't show the tape. It's sort of fast forwarded, but yeah, it's pretty ropey. Seems like you have to push eject to get the power to turn on. That's weird. Yeah, I think this has probably suffered from leaking capacitors like all handy cams of this era. The way that is flickering weirdly, it's definitely not happy. So let's take this thing apart and see if that uncovers anything exciting for us. I've noticed there's a bit of mold in this tape. It's probably been in a humid environment for a while. Not good, because that's a way to clog your video heads. So let's get this thing apart. The viewfinder can be removed. Thing like it, you'd use a coin to open it. Maybe you can rotate it. I'm not really sure how that would benefit you. Okay, it's got a retained screw thing. Don't really know where to start with this. It's got so much bits and pieces from all directions. We'll just open this, take the screws off, and we'll see what happens. There's real tiny ones. Okay, we've already got 2 different types of screws. 3 if you count that. 4 if you count that one. So that will be fun to put back together if we ever get there. Probably a way of popping that off. Just give it a smell. It doesn't smell like... You can't smell the fish like what is common on the Sony camcorders. After you turn them on, you get this stinky fish smell, and that is the capacitors, the juice coming out of them. The juice that was in them that is now permanently destroying the circuit board by corroding it. More different types of screws. Doesn't look like something that was made with easy serviceability in mind. Another screw though, I think that might only hold that little shoulder strap thing. That looks like it's just a bracket and now it's swung out of the way. Another weird screw. Okay, there's one in the front under that. Another weird screw. One here. I wonder if there's screws under this hot shoe, cold shoe kind of thing. Does that want to slide out? Yeah, it might do. Either that. Oh yeah. Wow, because of the shape of that metal, it hooks in from the back and hooks in from the front. And then that reveals some screws. Oh, and that has a little hook on the bottom. That hooked into there. Okay, it looks like this side's more willing to come off. And more screws though. Another one there. Like that just opens this front cover. Yeah, there's this. It's an IR thing. Twin beam autofocus. There's your twin beams. Ah, and then there's nothing in there, so that's an unnecessary bulge in the housing. Oh, okay, that undoes the record button. See some circuit board. So the mechanism seems to be stuck half between this side and half between that side. Maybe there's more stuff to undo. I don't know. Okay, looks exciting. And there's probably some things that we can unplug. That, I guess, is a microphone. That seems to be a switch for the microphone. It goes over to there. I wonder if, just look at that. That whole thing comes off, and then that releases this. Although it's tangled around another wire. Okay, so we've freed that side. Maybe that's a battery charger or some kind of power supply thing. It's got the input, those thicker wires for the battery. Oh, it's also got the zoom control buttons going to it. Some shielding on the back. Now the tape part seems to be fairly free. The camera part is still rigidly mounted in there. There's a screw there, which maybe that's what's holding it into the housing at the moment. Sort of, but there's another something happening down here, I think. I don't know, should we open that anyway, just for fun? Oh, that's a screw that's got a little... Okay, well that comes out more now. I'm still not sure what's holding this in. Was there a screw hiding under this? Must be something hiding somewhere. Something there, although we've taken that part. Ah, look, there's a screw there. Blending into the controls. Yeah, that'll be it. Viewfinder mount thing. Oh, that knob. White balance knob there. Little tiny variable resistor thing. There's that knob there for the mode. That comes with it, and that's got a wire which goes onto this board. Oh, and there's an insulating piece of stuff put down into a slot to hold those wires in place. Should we disconnect them from here? Quite an elaborate thing to route that cable. So we've got this thing peeled out now. You can see there's a ribbon going between the two parts, some discrete wiring, some thicker wires there which are probably bringing power to it. Let's see if we can work out what all those do. Oh, well, I'm guessing this 3-core one is bringing the zoom signal over from that other board that plugged into there. Once that comes up to there, that's probably what it's doing. You can see that this 2-core one was most likely bringing the power across. Wow, look at that, there is a multi-pin thing which goes over to that. Some sort of module there. Oh, it looks like that's something to do with the heat amplifier from the video signal coming off there. Probably some circuitry in there. And I think this ribbon will pull out. Yes. That will pull out since we already freed it. Oh, I think there's several others. We can hinge this board out perhaps. Ah yes. Oh, so there's several other cable assemblies. One up here. This one here with 4 pins. And this one here with more pins. Okay, so the VCR part is now separated. That's the tracking control there. I wonder if all this is VCR stuff. Oh, look at that. I think we've found out why it doesn't work. Hard out corrosion on that board there. All that stuff's gone a bit fluffy. Perhaps we'll get a microscope thing onto that in a bit. Also looks like... yeah, look at that. That one there's really gone bad. That one might have been overheating. Perhaps there's a switch mode controller in here, or switch mode regulator in there. And there's some high frequency currents in that and surrounding capacitors. Oh, yeah, it's all got good OSCONs capacitors in there. Oh, that was a soldered down shield that I just ripped off, okay. Yeah, that is a switch mode power supply of some sort. Inductors, capacitors, controllers with FETs and things on them. Oh yeah, that's probably the control IC. A TI something, this is TL1451. Ah, but that's a bit sad because it's probably not very practical to repair that, is it? Yeah, we'd have to get in there and scrub all that stuff. Replace all of those surface mount caps. Look at that, genuine bodge there. Wires coming all the way from over here onto that, and then a separate one that adds another resistor between a couple of pins. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, that's fluffy stuff there. Yes, that will unfortunately mean that the power supplies are wrecked. The voltages are probably unstable if they exist at all, and would explain its reluctance to work. There is corrosion on that one as well, or on there. Seeing if we can see some stuff leaking out of this. Let's look at the camera section and see what it reckons. Such a fancy camera though. Sad that it's a bit had it. It's got a dual macro system, a tele macro and a wide macro. Pretty interesting. So that will be the wide macro there. But it must have some kind of extra focus range up at the high end. I guess it's this stuff here, how it goes all the way from 1 meter down to 0.5 meters. A good focal range. I wonder then if we can get this working. Although, going by what we've seen previously in cameras, they are full of surface mount parts. So yeah, there's a pretty good chance that this is also full of dodgy surface mount electrolytics, or expired surface mount electrolytics. Wondering if we can get this board out and look under it. There's a multi-connector there, and there's all this business to peel off. Leave sticky gross residue and everything. And then there's more tape under that. And then there's that, that ribbon comes from this board, so we don't have to worry about ripping that. Interesting how it's got quite a little bit of tape holding it together. Okay, so there's not many surface, well, no surface mounted electrolytics on that, so that might have been spared We really want to look in this box though, where this sensor is. I don't know where they've packed that wire in, it's just all kind of bunched up. Okay, we peeled this back. Now let's see if we can open it up. There is a screw on that side. There's tape. Oh no, look at that. It's all corroded in there too. Oh, well, I guess we won't be getting this to go, not today at least. Yeah, so that's had a hard time as well. Presumably the other side of this is covered in surface mount electrolytics that have leaked. Let's see. Probably we can get the board off by undoing a couple of screws there, which will depends how they've constructed it. The CCD will have to come off. Yeah, that looks long, like it would be releasing the CCD from the rest of the lens mechanism. Yes, look at that, covered in electrolytics, and they've all gone bad. And so is that through hole there, even though that looks like a Nippon Chemicon with a little logo there. So good quality capacitors, but yeah, they're just too old. There's juice in there as well. You can see it there, juicy stuff. There's the image sensor, and there's a nice piece of non-clouded up IR filter. Okay, I think we're kind of done with that because it's unfortunately not going to work. We're not going to be able to get that going without serious rebuilding. I do have another S-VHS-C video camera that I thought was working. Well, at least the person that gave it to me had been using it to dub off their tapes. So perhaps we'll take a look in that one soon as well. There's another module there. I guess that's another power supply thing. So this is the bottom, because there was that switch on the bottom of the camera. So that there will be that, what do they call it, dual beam autofocus thing, because both of those autofocus sensors go onto there, and it probably directly drives the focus motor through that little geared motor thing. It says there end switch IR AFM, so that's AF motor, record switch. Does that mean there was another? Oh yeah, so that with that then SPD, so that's that sensor thing. Remember we've discovered that piezo thing in that other lens. I wonder if this has something like that. It does say PZM there, which reminds me of piezo thingies. Oh, I think it's power zoom motor, that's what that means. Yeah, I think that's just being... Oh, so those wires, they don't even go to this board, they go deep down into something else. I think that's where the iris servo thingy is coming off of, which is in there. So what does this connect to? Okay, it's got a multi-core connector under that electrolytic there. Those brown wires are the power to this board. It says there ground, AF control, VCC. I think it's the zoom motor connections and the record switch. So it's pretty much self-contained thing. There must be some kind of feedback to the lens, because it would have to know something about the picture being received in order to know that it was in focus or not. Unless there's some clue. Oh, I see. It doesn't, because when the focus is moved, you can see there's a thing there that winds in and out. So as this is turning, it's adjusting something inside this lens. So that's what's closing the loop. So it won't need any other feedback other than what this does to that. So you just power up this focusing thing. It drives the focusing motor. This measures the distance and adjusts this accordingly. And it knows when it's adjusted right because the beams converge or whatever it is got in there. Oh, I see what's going on. That moves slightly. So these must project and receive a very narrow beam, and depending on this distance here, that moves that one. So it will be adjusting the beam angle slightly, so where they converge will change to either further away or closer. That's cunning. Where does that connect on? It's buried under this stuff. Oh, it might be that. It is. Okay. So that wire, I don't even know, did that come? Oh, it must have been on there. So you can see there's an arm there with a pivot point on that rod, so that tilts that. And that's being driven through a little pin there, which couples it onto the focus lens. Neat. Is that as far as we need to go in this? I do want to look inside this metal box, but I don't know how to get that off at the moment. But then there's white wires going somewhere. I think there's a board to board connected there, which goes up to that. Yeah, there we go, we can pull that off. Oh, so those white wires go all the way around the lens over to here. Wow, that seems a bit excessive, doesn't it? Bringing that all the way around, and then that bizarrely excessive wiring. You'd think it would come across there. Is there some noise reason? So this should slide out now. Won't slide out fully though because that wire's trapped. That would have to get removed. Which might... is that soldered down to something? No. Yeah, we've done it now. Okay. There's various ICs under that. That looks like some kind of RAM or real-time clock thing. I suppose that makes sense. But then there's another CPU-like thing under there. Wouldn't be like the whole processor for the camera hiding right out here. Anyway, let's look inside this. That helps. If that helps. It's got a little thing, so that will be pushing into a small hole, holding it shut. Yeah, look at that. It's a little insulating sheet. And there's a board. Oh, it's soldered in place. Another little power supply module. Smells alright, but I don't think it is alright. No, it's definitely not alright. You can see there, I think that's a transistor with a sleeve on it. And you can see how there's dark marks traveling up it, so that will be the juice leaking out of the capacitors wrecking it. Awesome. Well, not very awesome, but there you go. Okay, let's look at the mechanism. I'll just tidy this mess up. Let's look at this thing. They put a little restraint on the viewfinder connector. Oh yeah, we got to take the viewfinder apart too, don't forget that. Let's do that now before we forget. Or in case I forget. Too excited about other things. All going to plan. This will be a same day upload as it was recorded. Hopefully the introduction about different tape formats wasn't too weak. Because that was very unrehearsed. Trying to get videos done that don't need very much editing because that's annoying and take ages. This will just pop open. Oh, is there a really deep screw there? Probably just need to get grey backdrop, don't I, instead of the white, so that the contrast is better for these darker coloured things. Viewfinder. Nice little CRT, deflection, flyback transformer, high voltage things, grids and gun connections, and there'll be a little chippy on the back to make it work. Hitachi A11812-1 presumably. Kind of dodgy capacitor business is going on in this. Doesn't look too bad. Smells alright, but then so is the rest of this camera. Weirdly. Tinted wires. Neat little CRT doofy. Long wires. It's got 4. Is there a light in this one? Don't know. I don't think so. Normally there's just ground, power, video, and that's it. Not sure if this has some other connection. It's interesting that the viewfinder connector has got quite a lot more pins than 4. So maybe there's a different version that does more stuff, maybe? Not sure if they're sharing that with the other models that do more things on their viewfinder. That went around there, did it? I think so. There's a little notch in the PCB there. I think that's how that wire went, which is kind of dodgy because it's going past all the high voltage stuff. Wrap your signal cables around the high voltage. Awesome. Maybe that seems to be bending the wrong way though. Oh, did I put that in around the wrong way? Because it's got a clip there. It's still a bit weird, because that means the wire comes up when you raise this thing up on this little doofy. Oh well, Viewfinder. Here's the mechanism. And we already discovered it's not in good shape because of these power supply boards leaking, making a mess of everything, and on these processing boards too. Some sort of wire link there. Couldn't go over that. Maybe that plug was a late addition. Looks like that's what it goes to. So what is that plug for? For earphones maybe? Yep, it says earphones on the housing. Oh, I guess then that's a cleaner way of getting an audio signal up and over here without taking it through all the video stuff. Shielding thing. Oh yes, so that must be because of where, yeah, the edge of that integrated thing pushes on there so it doesn't short out. Now, one interesting thing was that back door switch. Pretty sure it's that is the switch. Is there one at that end? Yes. And oh yeah, that's the microphone. I thought that was a little ferrite core thing, but no, that's just the little vibration mount for the rear microphone. There's one screw, but there's also heat stakes. Okay, that was the eject switch. I think I just wrecked it. I was thinking that board would lift out, but I think that might be heat staked on. I was thinking that was a sub-assembly that holds the buttons, but no, those might be going right to that. That's a shame. There's quite a bit of stuff on the other side I can see in there. Fair bit of stuff in there. I wanted to see if that switch, those switches there are wrecked. There's definitely something up with it. Well, maybe there isn't. It's just that the power supply was ruined, wasn't it? So, yeah, we can't really judge anything when the power supply of the camera is also visibly distraught. I think that's bicolor LED there. Oh yeah, both. Yeah, well, those are all LEDs. Maybe they're not bicolor because they were just red, weren't they? So that shows the camera or VTR mode. And now this is slid off. Okay, let's put that eject thingy back on. Now I've ruined it. Okay, it's a nice use of board-to-board connectors to hold all this stuff together. So that makes servicing it pretty much impossible because you have to have everything together before you can run it. Okay, so there's two switches there. One's for the erase prevention and the other one's for the S-video or S-VHS tape detection. The standard little VHS compact mechanism. There's the take-up spool there. The little cog or gear which goes onto the tape. So it does have the regular take-up reel there. You see, it's just flat, and that way they can still use the brakes and things on it to control the tape. But instead of it having a spindle that sticks up like normal, it goes over to this little gear, and then that touches the tape. It touches that thing in the tape housing. So as we discussed before, 2/3 size drum with the 4 video heads on it, and then they switch them alternatively so they get their alignment right, and the wrap is further around than the full size head. So there's the end sensor there. Presumably there's another one on the other side somewhere. Where does that go to? Oh yeah, there's the light source for that is down there. So that must shine out on an angle up to the IR receiver there. The audio control head, the erase head, the pinch roller there. Capstan is down here, so that stays on the inside of the tape. And then that arm brings it out. And then there's 2 guides there which come out. I don't know if we'll be able to power this thing up by itself without the camera attached. I think we should try that. Might as well, since we're here. Put this back on. But then we got this power supply board here, which went on there. That, what did that go to? Something. Oh, that went up to that. Yes, that has to be folded in. Just wanted to see if we can watch the tape mechanism running, that's all. Maybe we should join up this viewfinder too, because that will at least tell us that there's somebody home. Yeah. Poke that in there. Yeah, I don't think it's willing to play the game, is it? I don't think there's enough of it here. Maybe we disconnected something important. Or it's just wrecked. We already know it's wrecked. Before it was pushing the eject, which got it to power up. Bizarrely. And no dice. This is something else that I've pulled off that it needed. Maybe it relies on something in the camera section to power up. Like that extra power supply doofy. Oh well. Okay, we'll have to forget about that. We'll just take the mechanism apart a bit more and have a poke around at it. A bit disappointed about how wrecked this was from the capacitors, but kind of not surprising, is it? Look at that, all that juice build up there from something. Must have dribbled down. Don't know. Does this lift off? Looks like it might do. Yeah, so that doesn't even, that head amp type thing doesn't join to anything on this board. It only joins up to here. This, I think, has got another, yeah, there's more layers to this. There you go. So there was that. Oh, look at that, another good bodge there. A cap all the way from over there. Maybe that thing, which is probably a capacitor, it was way undersized, so they had to bring in the big guns of that. That looks like a tiny little tantalum style capacitor. Had to be extended. Little Nichicon cap. And yeah, there's drips of stuff. I think though that might actually be flux. Not sure about that. Oh, the soldering iron probably can tell us. I don't really want to smell that. I wonder if this is an early revision with these bodges on it. Here we got VHS-C mechanism. There's a motor driver IC there. Probably goes to the head motor. That one there went, or maybe that's for the head motor, and maybe that there's the capstan motor. No, that's got its own board here. Stand motor is connected by that ribbon there. Might be just more, I think it's more head pickup stuff. Maybe that's audio. This will have hi-fi audio in it. Yes, hi-fi stereo audio. This head will have more than 4 on it, because it will have the flying arrays and the hi-fi heads as well as the 4 video heads. The motor part, I think, is that coming from that driver, and I think that there will be the audio heads pickup, or the flying arrays head, or both, through that ribbon there, going to that, which then went to and went into various things. And then I think that other, which is a shielded flexible ribbon there, will come off and go into this housing, and I think that one there will be the video heads. That's what I think. Let's open it up. Little metal tabs. Could be the other way around with the audio and video parts. I'm not exactly sure. I'm looking at it for a while. I'm looking up some parts. Man PA. And then that's joined on by this little screw here. More corrosion, as you'd expect, since there's some service mount caps there. And yeah, so good luck replacing all that stuff if you wanted to get it working again. Should we see under there? That one might be a bit too tricky to open. That ribbon's glued down on it. I think that might be soldered in as well as those bent over tabs for the belt there for the take up and rewind and fast forward. Goes to a little idler gear there, which swings between the take up reel and the supply reel. There'll be some sort of back tension thingy from that lever on that post there. Where's the loading motor? Down there. We can't easily run that. I think we can get this to the eject position so we can look underneath it. Looks like the eject mechanism is related to this stuff here. When that slides, oh, there you go. So that's the emergency eject. We'd push that over. Okay, yes, there's back tension band under the reel there. You can see the back of it, that little brassy coloured thing. So good luck if the felt falls off of that, as they do in some machines when they get old. And yes, you can see that joins onto that arm there. You can see the beginning of it there. It's held by that white part, and then the strip goes out. I don't know if that spring is related to it, maybe. Yes, that is. So as it loads up, that will pull down. Alright, there you go. There's a look at a badly corroded S-VHS-C camcorder. I think we'll finish off by having a close-up look at some of these corroded boards. Alright, we'll take a look at this board first. The power supply thing. Oh, look at that. It's so fluffy. Good amount of fluff on there, look at that. On the terminals of the capacitor. Oh yeah, look at that crust around the edge of around the cap. On that leg there, rust and corrosion and juice travel off the board and down onto the main board below it. All the good juice around those. What? Juice residue. Oh yeah, look at that, it's eaten through the wire there. And these guys, I think those must be current sensing resistors. You can see how the resistor's been trimmed to value with a notch in it there. So the substrate we put down, then measured and then etched or cut to set the resistor value. Lovely. Well, not that lovely. And there's some kind of glue residue stuff up here. See that they're kind of sitting in some kind of wax, maybe? Maybe it is wax because you can poke it. And it's got a fingernail and then, yeah, it is wax. And it's got some sort of hair trapped in it there. Oh yes, up on this board here, there was more excitement over the, yep, juicy stuff around there. That's just flux around there. Yeah, the corrosion is there. Maybe that dripped off of another board. Let's see around these electrolytics. And it's a little bit crusty, but not as bad as the others. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's as bad. I just think it hasn't leaked out as far. Oh, look at that. That terminal of that resistor there's got some sort of stuff on it. I wonder what that is. Is that some sort of migration or it's solder? Maybe just a mess of solder. There's weird stabilization thing happening with this camera where the really bright part of the picture moves independently from the rest of it. Look at that. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Yeah, all the good crust. Okay, let's look at that juicy stuff. I think it's just flux. The problem is we have to refocus it. I think those puddles of brown stuff is just flux. I think that's not actually... Yeah, not sure about that. So then on this board, yeah, there's more of that brown stuff. Okay. Yes, look at that puddle of stuff there. Not really sure what that is. Perhaps we'll just heat up the soldering iron and poke it and see what it does. The smell will tell us what it is. But on this board, which is that little head amplifier thing, there is major corrosion around the parts. In addition to that flux stuff, all of that, the legs of the capacitors, all the pads that they were soldered to, crustified, growing all sorts of goodies. Wow, look at that, that's been swimming in some kind of juice, hasn't it? Okay, let's touch the soldering iron onto that stuff and see what it does. Okay, yes, that is definitely stuff that's leaked out of capacitors. That's not flux. Didn't even need to bring that near me to smell it. Yes, so it's not flux, it's gross stuff that came off of a capacitor, or out of the capacitors, out of the electrolytics. Yes, so we can really smell the fish now. Yeah, that board there with the battery and stuff on it, that's all wrecked. See all the crust and the corrosion which has come from these caps here. Look at that. Eating it all away. And it's on the other side too. Soaked through. Turned everything all gross. Now we'll look on this backboard of the camera where the CCD is. And yeah, it's the same story. Just covered in crud. All juicy crud. I guess a lot of that will wash away, but you see there, right in the center now, that was a wire. And yeah, it ain't in very good shape. There, so it's probably lost its connection to the other side, or the connection is in bad shape and it will be lost soon if this keeps growing. Crusty. Whoa, look at that, how bad it's corroded the legs of that SOP 23 looking thing. The legs of that look very interesting, whatever those are. Where are we looking? Here. Oh, I think it's a reflection, isn't it? Oh, that kind of red colour seems to be part of a reflection. Not really sure what that's reflecting from though. It's interesting that these ceramic caps have got markings on them. Probably some code for the value. And then over at the edge here, more of that sticky juice. Puddles of sticky juice. That's the legs insulating that bodge-on capacitor. Lovely. Alright, that's a look at what was an S-VHS-C camcorder. Was, because yeah, it's probably not going to be one again now that the caps have leaked and pretty much wrecked the circuit boards. Oh well, that's what happens when things get old.